Beer Edge has partnered with Pro Brewer to bring original articles to probrewer.com twice a week, covering issues important to the beer industry and aimed at helping breweries of all sizes understand different facets of the business. Check out our articles on probrewer.com every Tuesday and Thursday, and visit the site daily for other original content and to stay connected with the beer industry. Welcome to Drink Beer, Think Beer, the podcast that gets to the bottom of every pint. I'm John Hall. To Pittsburgh this week, and a conversation with Andrew Witchey of Dancing Gnome about the city's beer DNA, ditching sours, creating a welcoming space, and finding that perfect lot of hops. But first, All About Beer is back online and producing original content for beer enthusiasts and professionals. Visit allaboutbeer.com to see the latest. And if you want to support us in that endeavor, we've set up a Patreon for both readers and professional companies in the beer space. Check out patreon.com/allaboutbeer to learn more. And we're able to bring you this show each week thanks to the companies that support independent journalism in the beer space. Learn more about our surprisingly affordable rates by emailing sponsor@beeredge.com. Today's episode is sponsored by Stomp Stickers. Stomp is a proud member of the Brewers Association that produces a wide variety of printed brewery products, such as beer labels, keg collars, coasters, beer boxes, and much more. Stomp's website features an easy-to-use design tool, low quantity orders, fast turnaround times, and free domestic shipping. Visit stompstickers.com and use code BeerEdge15 for 15% off of your first order. Cigar City is also a sponsor of this episode, and we're grateful for that. And as he does from time to time, Wayne Wombles is here. He's Cigar City's brewmaster, and we're talking about Cosmic Crown, the brewery's strong golden ale. So Wayne, welcome back. And for those who are unfamiliar with this beer, can you tell us a little bit about it and what folks can expect both flavor and aroma-wise?
Yeah, sure, John. Cosmic Crown is a Belgian golden style ale, and we wanted to take a unique approach on it. So we actually use Galaxy hops for aroma hops, which adds a passion fruit sort of characteristic to the existing tropical profile of this beer. So it's a 9% ABV Belgian Golden Strong Ale, but it drinks deceptively smooth. It's hard to pick up on that higher alcohol. And once again, as with many Cigar City Brewing beers, it has some tropical elements. So pineapple and banana are some of the bigger components that play into that tropical character. But it also has floral components from the hops that we use. There's also a little bit of red apple. There's also some phenols, so you get a little bit of light clove and a light black pepperiness. And you also notice that the beer has a fairly forward malt sweetness, but this is balanced by the floral bitterness that the hops provide. And then there's also a touch of spiciness in the finish, I think, that helps balance out the malt sweetness. One of the unique things about the beer is the complex fruit characteristics and the spice profile that the Belgian yeast creates are complemented by the Galaxy aroma hops that we use. And the Galaxy hops aren't really adding any bitterness. They're just adding additional aromatic and flavor depth without throwing the balance of malt sweetness and bitterness off.
I really dig it. It's been a lot of fun to drink over the weekend and even right now as we're talking. So thanks, Wayne. We're going to have more with you at the bottom of the show, but now I'm going to encourage everybody to go visit cigarcitybrewing.com, where they can learn more about Cosmic Crown and all of the brewery's other beers.
Sounds great, John. Thanks.
The Homebrewers Conference was in Pittsburgh 2 weeks ago, and I had the chance to talk about Rauch beer on a panel while I was there, but I also used my brief time in the city to check out a few spots. The first was Dancing Gnome. Andrew Witchey is the founder and brewer and opened up his new taproom early for a conversation over Kolsch about how the city has evolved beer-wise and where it's heading. He also talks about his appreciation of lagers, his dislike of sours, and how he created a new space that reflects the beers and the brewery's personality. Here's our conversation. In thinking about this trip and coming out to Pittsburgh, which I haven't been here in years, I was thinking about industry, I was thinking about science, I was thinking about the true passion that this city has. And you can talk about passion in every city, and people love where they come from. It feels a little bit more ratcheted up, at least from a national or an outsider's point of view here in Pittsburgh. And then I was looking at the map, and I was saying, okay, I'm in town for a little bit. I want to go visit some breweries. And even just a simple Google search came back with dozens of results. So in thinking about how many breweries there are and thinking about the city's history, does Pittsburgh have a beer identity?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that Pittsburgh has become a very cool beer town that I think doesn't get put on the lists as other more notable beer towns. Like you have Portland, Oregon, you have Portland, Maine, you have Denver. Those are always going to get a lot of play. But I think Pittsburgh does have kind of a long history with beer and alcohol as a whole.
Sure.
And
I mean, Iron City.
Yeah. I mean, they've been around forever, and that's still a super popular brand, and what they've been doing and their kind of growth and change since that company was purchased a handful of years ago has been like awesome. And they've like really pumped into the city and like grabbed onto Pittsburgh, which, you know, it is, but they weren't even brewed in Pittsburgh. Now they're back to actually being brewed in Pittsburgh. But there's pushing 50 breweries in the county now, and I think everybody seems to do pretty well, and people, it's for sure a drinking city.
Is there an identity though? Like, are there? When I think about tight-knit cities and when I think about the way that people can rally around something local, there are consumer tastes that emerge, it seems, or people favor something.
Sure.
You know, and I even think about, like, you know, New England IPA in the last couple of years and how that took over that section of the country and then sort of spread out.
Right.
Do you see anything here where drinkers are steering you all?
I think I honestly think it's a mix of everything. I mean, hazy IPAs for sure are king and kind of, I think, will remain king as they are in a lot of parts of the country. But, you know, really anything. I've been surprised. You know, personally, I really like lagers. I really like all aspects of it, from a production to a drinking to and everything. And, you know, now that we have this space and we have more tank space and the ability to produce more lagers, that's the kind of route that we went into. And I was really surprised at the reception of that. And, you know, you bring up Iron City. So, like, in that sense, like, people understand that. They don't necessarily know the nuances between different German style lagers, but it's a lager. And that's they grab onto that. But I mean, I think a lot of breweries do a little bit of everything. I mean, we don't do any sours, but there's sours here. They're doing a really cool mixed culture fest here in Pittsburgh next month. So there's more and more breweries like really focusing on that aspect. And there's really no one that just does, you know, one single thing anymore. And I feel like, kind of as a collective, there's enough breweries in Pittsburgh, and we're close enough, kind of like as a group, that almost like we kind of steer the ship a little bit. So, you know, what we like and what we're moving towards, the consumer kind of just jumps on.
How have you communicated that to the consumer then?
Just like from any perspective of how we communicate anything. I mean, whether it's, you know, we do a weekly newsletter, which a lot of folks do.
Sure.
Social media, just kind of having a voice and using it in, you know, what you said earlier in regards to passion, like caring about it and trying to educate why somebody else should care about it without being pushy, in a sense.
Yeah.
So, and I think that comes through, like in you know, I was talking to you about Kolsch earlier, and I really like Kolsch, and I really wanted to do a Kolsch night and do Kolsch service, and we got Kranz trays and Stanges, and I was like, and we opened a whole new day. We weren't open on Tuesdays, and we decided to open on Tuesdays and do it. And I for sure thought it was going to be, no one's going to come. Like, there's going to be like 5 people.
This was an excuse for you to just get together with your buddies
and try to educate. And it's turned into one of our best days of the week. So,
like, solely on the back of Kolsch.
Yeah. And we don't exclusively do Kolsch on Tuesdays, so you can come in and get pints. But but yeah, it's really people seem to get behind it.
So who are you targeting here? Because like I think about Iron City, and I think, it can be, for Old Salts. It can be for, young folks who, it's like a hipster brand in some ways,
Sure.
or tied to the past. Breweries like yours are typically skew a little bit younger, and now like middle-aged is like we're all getting older.
Right.
But who are you trying to, like, who do you see in here?
It's across the board. And I think early on in the original days of Dancing Gnome, we very much were, very much a beer nerd crowd. Like, and that was by design. I mean, I opened the place up. There wasn't a brewery that was in Pittsburgh that was focusing on educated consumers. Everybody was doing, an American Pale and a Red Ale and a Brown Ale and a Stout, and
or we're in some of the more touristy areas. Like I think about Church, and I think about some of the other, ones that I went to 20 years ago.
Yeah, and
which did what they had to at the time,
for sure. And it absolutely made sense. But like as beer was growing, this was 2013, 2014. Beer was growing and changing, and I was really into beer and studying beer, and I kind of saw that. So built Dancing Gnome with the idea that like this was going to be a place. If you were already into beer and you traveled for beer and you loved beer, like this was going to be your place. And that's what it ended up being. And then as we grew and changed, I very much wanted to be able to better reach the casual consumer that might not nerd out about beer, care about beer in any way, shape, or form, but still be able to provide a product that they can enjoy in a space it feels comfortable being.
Was that a personal, professional desire, or out of necessity, or both?
I would say both. Definitely a personal, professional desire first. That's why we started building out this space like pre-pandemic. Mm-hmm. Because we needed more space, we needed more beer, we needed more room, and truly part of that build out and plan as we were figuring out, what is this growth trajectory and where do we want to be? By design, it was like, okay, we're going to go into distribution as well. It's going to be, our bread and butter is always going to be the tap room, and we're going to focus on the tap room and make sure to curate a really good experience in the tap room. But like, I want anybody in Western Pennsylvania to be able to drink our beers and not have to come to the tap room. So that was very much by design in that way. And then I would say like now it worked out in the sense that now it's by necessity, in the sense that like COVID really changed consumer habits. And you just adapt and change, and it's been great, but I'm glad we were going that route beforehand.
Yeah. What's leading the portfolio on shelves out in the wild in Western Pennsylvania?
For us or for everybody?
Yeah, well, for you.
Lustra for sure. That's our like house pale ale. Just a 5.8% hazy pale ale. It's about 35% of our overall production.
Wow.
And yeah, we push that a lot, but it also for sure sells the most.
Does that surprise you that it's a pale and not like a full strength 6% IPA?
I think it surprises other people more than it surprises me.
Okay.
Because that was also very much by design from day one. Like, I wanted Lustra to be Dancing Gnome's beer. Like that is the.
So this is the manifest destiny.
Yeah, like I was putting everything in there, and it was very important to me that it be a pale ale and not an IPA.
Why?
Because it was more approachable to me, and I think early on too, we do a lot of very low ABV beers, but one of my like first iterations of business plan was to do like only low ABV beers.
You're a man after my own heart.
Yeah, and obviously it didn't go that way, especially the consumers that we did have early on, like they wanted doubles, they wanted triples, so like I gave it to them. But the plan was to do very low ABV stuff. So,
but while you were doing those doubles and triples, were you still kind of like, okay, you've had two of those, now here, have a Lustra?
Yeah, for sure. We always have Lustra. Like we never don't have it on
sure.
our cans.
Well, you have to if it's 35%. I mean, that'd be catastrophic if you didn't.
And back in the day, we brewed it all the time, but like it would sell out, and then we'd have to wait a couple weeks until it came back. But we always try to have we basically like table beers, but we call them petites. So a petite IPA will go as low as, we've gone as low as 2.8%. IPA, petite pales. That's just basically dependent on the makeup of the beer. But yeah, and we have a regular who comes in here and like pretty much exclusively drinks doubles. And he's not picky. He's not a beer nerd. He's just a local.
No, he just wants to get hammered.
Yeah. And recently
not disparaging it
for sure.
Yeah.
And recently, he's been grabbing, like we have just American golden ale, we call it, called Elk Artist. It's just 2-row and Centennial. It's a really easy beer that tastes like beer, just a little bit craftier, I suppose. And he's been like ordering that, and I'm like, I'm so surprised. He's like, it's a great beer. And I'm like, it is a great beer. I tried to tell you that 3 years ago. But yeah,
I wonder though, because as I'm coming out more and more to the bars, to being out, and it's one thing to be at home, or when I lived in the city, being able to walk home at night and like being like, sure, like 7%, like I'm going to be angry at myself in the morning, maybe, but like, what the hell? But now when I do have to drive, or, I'm also been drinking like heavier ABV stuff at home, like I'm finding lower. I've always enjoyed lower, but like I'm finding that I really am gravitating towards that
for sure.
More and more and more.
Yeah.
And I mean, clearly with that customer, you're seeing that just over your bar top.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think, we're all getting older. You can't drink like you were 22 anymore.
Sure.
So I think that's part of it too. Is none of us promote the idea of drinking for the alcohol, but it is a factor for sure, and it's gonna happen. So understanding and maturing and changing your drinking habits because of it are great.
Let's talk about Lustra, just to sort of get back to that for a second, because this is what you had in your mind as you want the brewer to be known for. Mm-hmm. What's in it, and how has it evolved since you first conceived it to where it is now?
Yeah, so it's a Citra Amarillo 5.8% hazy pale ale. It has not evolved that much, other than just like in growing both myself as a brewer, as well as like adding team and being more professional with better gear and stuff. Slight tweaks that I just think it's really dialed right now. But as far as like what it is, it was always a Citra Amarillo pale ale. How
many people come in and ask you how come there's no mosaic in it?
Well, we usually have a bunch of beers with mosaic in it, so they'll be satisfied. But yeah, luckily not. We do list the hops on the board too, so like that, which I guess we don't need to anymore. But back in the day, we got the question so many times, like what hops are in this, that it was like, let's just put it on the board.
If you were trying to build for the beer nerds, then
it made
they wanted
sense
to know it. And,
tried to put as much info as we could, but
I can really taste the Citra that was added first, as opposed.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, we do a beer. We have a single hop IPA series called Jam.
Okay.
And it's just named after the hops: Citra Jam, Simcoe Jam, Mosaic Jam, whatever. And every year, it started as a joke, but there's a guy in Sharpsburg who makes sweet potato pies, and so at Thanksgiving we did yam jam, and he like roasted us a bunch of yams, and we threw them in the mash, and the Untappeds were great. Like you'd get like, oh, really taste the yams, and like someone would be like, not enough yam, and it's like there's like it's just an IPA, like it's a super hoppy IPA. You're not going to taste any yam at all, but
it's more mouthfeel than anything else,
I always thought it was funny. But
all right, so but on Lustra though, so it hasn't changed much.
No, not much.
What do you like about the dual hop combination?
It's super citrus forward, and now that we can select crops too, that's like really helpful.
Sure,
because we can like pick especially with Amarillo, like Citra is there's a ton of lots of Citra, but like for the most part it's Citra. Yeah. But Amarillo has such a wide breadth of character.
Yeah.
So, I mean, being able to select the one that works for what you're aiming for the beer is awesome.
So we're coming up on harvest in a couple of weeks, 2 months. But what do you look for? for Amarillo? I mean, what is?
Yeah, super bright, vibrant orange is like what I want out of it. Like tangerine as heck. Just all citrus. Like, and it runs the gamut. I mean, you'll have, anytime we've done selection on Amarillo, it's like you'll get a cut that is just like so earthy and herbal, and then you'll get one that's like in the middle with some citrus tones, and then you'll get one that's like an absolute blast of citrus, and like that's what I like.
That's what you want.
Yeah. And then I just think it works. It's not, and with the combo, it's not overwhelming. It's not one dimensional, but it's not, so multi-dimensional that you're like, oh my gosh, this is like blowing my mind.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's just a solid beer that you can very much be like, wow, this is really good, but also just forget about it and keep drinking pint after pint.
For 35% of your portfolio, though, and for how much that hop is in demand, are you able to select enough lots during selection to get you so that, there's not going to be the variation that somebody's going to show up at some point and be like, yeah.
Yeah, and that hasn't, every once in a while, if I don't know, something happens with ordering or whatever, and I need to like grab a box off of like a friend somewhere.
Yeah.
Every once in a while you'll get a crop that you can like kind of notice a difference.
Okay.
But it'd be one where a national brand would be concerned about, but like it's still an agricultural product, and we're still like, for all intents and purposes, we're a small brewery. So, the consumer doesn't know nearly as much, wouldn't recognize it nearly as much as we do, unless you like, that's the beer you exclusively drink. But there is going to be a little bit of variation just by default of like not having the lab components or blending components that like a huge brewery would have.
Yeah.
More in just a moment. But first, thanks to the companies that help keep us on the air. Cigar City Brewing has taken inspiration from beyond the cosmos for Cosmic Crown, a golden-hued, strong golden ale, and added Galaxy hops to impart passion fruit and peach qualities to its profile of ripe fruit and light, peppery spice. Learn more at cigarcitybrewing.com. And Stomp Stickers is a reliable resource for printed items such as beer labels and boxes, keg collars, coasters, and more. Visit stompstickers.com and use code BeerEdge15 for 15% off of your first order. And now, back to our conversation.
As you think about the continuing evolution of the brewery, where do you want to put your efforts?
That's tough. I want to reopen our old tap room or open a new tap room that is like completely different conceptually. I initially wanted to do it like a very lager focused spot, but that was when I thought that no one would drink lagers here. And now half our board is lagers. So it's like, there's no need to open up a dedicated space for it.
I don't know. I'd still come visit.
Yeah. And,
I mean, it's working for Beer Stamp.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm always thinking about that. And that's, I wanted to, basically get this place to a level of autonomy where it's not something that I'm thinking about all the time. Where like, this we're coming up on a year of opening here. That was October. We opened last year. And so I think that, we're not too far off of this place being able to just like run on its own. And that's when I'll really start to sit down and focus on what I want that concept to be.
Would you do different beers at the different concept, or same beers, just different aesthetics?
I think different beers, and not all ours.
Okay.
Like lots of guest taps.
How important is the aesthetics of this place? I before we started recording, I think I described it as very clean, very sparse, but still somehow very welcoming.
Yeah.
Or something along those lines.
For sure.
Do the beers match the space? Does the space match the beers? And how important is that?
I think they go together for sure. And this space, the design of this space was kind of a taking our old space and expanding it and making it much brighter. And obviously there's a lot of plants in here. and that feels comforting, I think, for a lot of folks. And then in regards to the beer, I think that my goal and thoughts with our beers has always been, and it should be everybody's, like, quality first, like high quality product. Excuse me. But like, we've not never, because we have, but like for the most part, Dancing Gnome beers aren't weird. We're trying to hit specific flavors based on traditional styles and like traditional brewing. Like, obviously New England style IPAs aren't traditional, but there's a big difference between utilizing those techniques and making an enjoyable beer versus making like a milkshake beer out of it, So I think that the space and the beers go hand in hand in that way, that it's clean and easy to consume.
Would it be out of character if you did a milkshake where your regulars would feel weird about it? I don't know. I think maybe. We've never done one. We used to do fruited sours, and I stopped doing that in 2019. But and that was consumer driven, and that's why I stopped doing it, because I was like, I hate doing this, and it doesn't feel like it's a part of the brand. But they always sold, and finally I just made the call, like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not going to do it. And so we would get asked every once in a while. Was there pushback? Yeah. Well, it kind of just faded away. Okay. I mean, and that was like right before COVID too. So our last one was December 2019. All right, so that's, yeah. And that was like, I was like, I'm not making one in 2020. And then with COVID, like, no one really thought about it. And then I think I like tweeted, like, it's been a year since I made underscore. And then people, every once in a while, someone's like, oh, this is my last one. And I'm like, why'd you hang on to that for so long? What are you doing? That's not, excuse me. Yeah, that's not something to be proud of. That's,
but we kind of joke about bringing that back, but I don't know. I think that people would definitely be confused. I don't feel like it's part of our portfolio necessarily, but I've always believed that beer is so incredibly subjective that no one's wrong, and I'll agree with you on that. Just if you like that, that's awesome.
Yeah, and you're not going to yuck somebody else's yum or anything along those lines. But at the Craft Brewers Conference this year in Minneapolis, I was talking with a bunch of brewers and planning, and they're saying, well, what are you going to do? And it's like, oh, well, we're going to do AZ IPAs, we're going to do kettle sours, and we're going to do, pastry stouts. And it's like, why? It's like, well, that's what people want. And that's what out there. And it's like, is that what you want to do? And then no, and then ... And they would like tell me what they wanted to do. It strikes me as a fairly bold step in this day and age when sours, or at least popular in conversation. I don't know if it actually bears out to like how many people want to be drinking, heavily fruited sour like on a regular basis. And places that I've seen that have opened up around that style, trying to capture something, have been kind of shocked that it's not, that they're not retiring on their Scrooge McDuck yacht or whatever it is. But it strikes me as a bold step to say, I don't like making these, I'm just going to stop making these.
Yeah. And I mean, I think part of that too is that there's enough in the city. I mean, there's breweries all around that do it and still do it and do it pretty well. So like, why do we need to do it?
Right. But I think there could be some ownership fear of, well, yeah, but then those people are making the dollars that I could have made. And, oh my gosh, I have a mortgage and I have my, but I mean, that's probably the wrong attitude.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a fair attitude to have. Luckily, we didn't have to worry about that.
Okay.
So, it was very much. It's not like it wasn't a beer for us. We only did one. It was called Underscore, and it had different fruits in it. So it was Underscore Raspberry, Underscore Passion Fruit, Underscore whatever, Double Underscore. Yeah, and then we started bringing out double underscores, and that was problematic. But we didn't. It's not like we always had it on. You know. So it's like it was something that. We'd bring out, it would sell out immediately, and another one would come out 3 or 4 weeks later. And it was a pain,
How so?
Kettle souring. Well, selling it wasn't a pain, but kettle souring's a pain. These ones were unfermented fruit, so we had a process down that worked really well, where like we never had issues with exploding cans or anything. They would re-ferment, but none of them ever would explode. So, you had that aspect where our consumers were knowledgeable enough to know what they needed to do with it because of it. And there are other breweries in the country doing this successfully and unsuccessfully. So, but I would never do it now, especially because, you can't tell somebody that you have to keep a beer cold or it's going to go bad. Like, that's crazy. I mean, you should keep beer cold anyways, but the idea that like, oh, keep this in the refrigerator, the lid's going to pop off just seems crazy. So
yeah, but there's been enough breweries that have convinced consumers that this is their responsibility as opposed to stuff going out of the door at a brewery that, is a countdown clock.
Yeah. But I guess maybe they'd say that too. It would be like if we put out, I don't know, if we put out a batch of Lustre that oxidized in 3 weeks, like we would recall that, So why wouldn't you with a beer that explodes? But you're right. But that's I guess that's the benefit of being able to do direct to consumer and having a very specific consumer base. Is that there is that educational component where you're putting it in the hands of the people that understand it, versus like sitting it on a shelf and buying it there where anything could happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't miss it at all. Maybe someday I would bring back like a legitimate Berliner Weiss, like a fruited Berliner.
Yeah.
I would do that. And
or just straight up
maybe
and like
call
syrups.
it underscore again. But
let's get Woodruff back.
We have a bottle of that.
Do you?
Yeah. There's a German club here in Pittsburgh called Teutonia Mannerchor, and they gave us some.
It's so good.
Yeah, it is good.
It's so good. It's unlike
Was that
anything
Lemke
else.
that makes one? Lemke makes a
Keith and or is that a brewery?
Lemke is a German brewery.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking of Keith Lemke formerly of Siebel.
Oh.
Sorry.
Yeah.
They make one?
Yeah, a Woodruff one. Yeah. It's like 3%.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
great.
I judged at the
incredibly
New York
refreshing.
State competition, like whatever their guild is, the Empire Cup or the Governor's Cup or something. And it was a great competition. I'm not like saying this to dismiss it.
Sure.
And one of the 2 winning beers was a Berliner with Woodruff.
Nice.
And it was almost unanimous at the table where we were split between a brown ale and a Berliner, a traditional Berliner with Woodruff. And when it was over, it was like, holy shit. Like, this is, first of all, a table full of beer nerds that just want like quality drinks, but 2, I miss Woodruff syrup. Like, it's just, yeah.
Yeah. And that's like, I feel like unless you've been there, have any kind of, I don't know, international understanding of that stuff. Like, so many people don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate because it's so good.
It really is. And it's sort of tough to describe. Could I steal another one of those while we're still?
Yeah, of course.
Sorry. This is a really good Kolsch.
Appreciate it.
Kolsch style. Because you're trying to be.
Yeah, I've given it up, but technically,
yeah,
it should always be called Kolsch style.
Do people who come here on Tuesday nights enjoy the theater of it all? Or just that things just keep showing up until they say Namas?
I think it's mostly that. And I think it's mostly just to like have a reason to go out on a Tuesday and do something different, because we do have gravity kegs that we have set up before, but it's kind of a pain in this setup.
Okay.
It's easier just to have it on tap and fill the Kron's tray and go from there. So there's not a ton of theatrics in it other than walking the tray around. And even then it's pretty low key and chill, but, I guess they like the idea of not having to come up to the service counter but I mean, it's only 6.7 ounces of beer or something like that.
I know.
It's 20 centiliters. So, it's not a lot. I feel like I would just be like, next.
Yeah. Yeah. I had about 3 hours once in Cologne with my family around Christmas time, and they were all doing the markets, and I was like, I need to go, and I need to have like proper Kolsch service. And I was very much that boorish American that was really trying to cram in like as many glasses as I could, just so that I could have the experience of getting out there. And
For sure.
When my bar tab came, when I was finally like, I really have to go meet the family, and I was like, holy shit, that's a lot of ticks on the piece of paper. That is. Like, well done, but also not well done at all. But I also enjoyed the experience of it, of like glass empty and like boom, and it's like you're not even asking, and it's just kind of fun.
Yeah, and it is the ticks are, I guess, do serve that purpose as well, being like, well, I've had enough.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if your vision starts to blur and then it's double, then that'll cut you off. I wanted to jump back to your low ABVs, your 2.8s.
Yeah.
There's been a bunch of breweries. I mean, obviously, non-alcoholics are rising and are not the jokes, that they used to be.
Sure.
But there's something about 3 and sub 3 that I find very appealing, like as a drinker, especially if I'm out and in situations like this and I know it's going to be a long day of like brewery hopping or whatever. What I find missing a lot of the time is mouthfeel.
Yeah, sure.
The aroma can be spot on, but then I take a sip and it's like...
In those smaller beers, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
So how are you approaching... those particular beers? I'm not saying I haven't had any of yours, so maybe they're full bodied, maybe they're not. I just
and I think that for us that depends on which beer it is, because some of them would be designed as being like a crisp summer drinking. I hate to say thin, but mouthfeel wise, like
a lawnmower beer I could get,
right? Yeah. But if we're
more
doing
hydration than anything else,
if we're doing like a 3% hazy, just a lot of residual dextrin, like keeping the final gravity as high as possible, and this balance. Like obviously, don't make it sweet, but that helps. That goes a long way in helping with those.
So I probably jumped ahead a little bit. So how are you approaching making a 2.8% beer? Like what's your goal?
Yeah, I it's a low ABV beer that you can drink a lot of that feels like you're drinking a 7% beer. Maybe not 7, but 5.5, 6.
Okay.
Feels like you're drinking a regular IPA. But you can go play 18 holes and have... I'm not going to give a number. I don't. Whatever. One hole. No, but
a beer every other hole.
And it's at 2.83%. Like it'll eventually catch up to you, but at that point, it's like you have to drink a lot of it quickly for that to happen. So just that it's kind of session beers and kind of what we said before about going away from
session
doubles.
has a different connotation these days. Like session is still in that 4. Some people will even go up to 5, which I think is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But that sub 3, I don't even want to call those session beers because I think that definition is already taken.
Yeah, and I think folks are into them. I mean,
or do you want to change the definition?
We call them petites.
Right.
Petite pale, petite IPA, whatever it is. I think, as far as defining it, no, I think it is a good, like, not step, but, you're not drinking NA, but it's low enough that, you're not getting blasted or having to worry about consuming it. As far as definition, I don't know. But people seem into them enough. Yeah.
Is there's a certain expectation when you mentioned hazy IPA, there's a certain expectation of those styles for mouthfeel, for body, for hop aroma, for ABV, and then also for price point as well. Are petites, can they penetrate into that broader category?
Yep, 100%. We sell them at the same, in regards to like business and cost, we sell them at the same cost as a regular IPA. There's minimal less ingredients. Obviously, you're using less grain, but grain is the cheapest of any of the ingredients outside of maybe water. And realistically, my thought on that from like a sociological perspective and a psychology perspective is that you don't want to diminish the quality of the product based on the price. So like if you're buying a $16 4-pack and you see something for 14 or 12, like there is a tie that like that product might not be as good. Not that everybody consciously thinks that, because they don't, but that's kind of why we do it that way. And they still have a ton of hops in them. So, and that's the most expensive ingredient. So, in that regard, we do. But you know, on the opposite end of that, like, lagers take so much time, and they're not expensive, but they're not inexpensive because of the time that they take if you're doing them appropriately. And those we sell at a pretty inexpensive price point, just because people see lager and they just, I don't know, automatically assume it should be in a 30 rack. Yeah. But so that's tougher.
Yeah. I mean, again, it goes back to Iron City with that, with that 30 rack. Are you seeing the local pride come through from non-craft drinkers for what you're doing and for what the others are doing?
Yeah, I think so. I think they kind of have to be a convert, though, in the sense that I think that there are folks that would never come in here and would never drink Dancing Gnome, but they live across the street and they're like, I'm really glad you're in Sharpsburg, you know? So they don't come in, they're not going to drink it, they're going to drink their Icy Light.
Yeah.
But they're supportive of what we're doing.
Can you ever get them in? Is there anything that you can do that you think? Because it seems like you're going to have to walk further into the middle of the street than they will.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, like, I don't worry about getting them in, because like everybody has their place, and I would rather, you know, someone who's going to a local native dive bar and spending $1.50, $2 a bottle.
Yeah.
They're never going to come in here, and that's okay. You know, like, I don't need to change their habits just as I wouldn't want them to change mine.
Yeah.
But there's, you know, the good thing about alcohol consumption as well is you always have new audience. Every year you have a new audience.
Yeah.
So
they're every day.
Yeah. Trying to you're right, every day. Yeah. There's not one birthday. Yeah, so trying
be
to
a hell of a party if
trying to educate the younger consumer as well and get them excited about it, because even though they might not have expendable income now, but they will eventually. So I don't know, kind of following that along.
As we're sitting here, and I don't want to step too outside of a scope, you're wearing a short sleeve T-shirt and you're heavily tatted, which is great. There's a lot of ink, and I'm seeing hop cones, and I'm seeing some other things, and then I'm seeing a candle being burned at both ends.
Yeah, I love that one.
What do you love about that one?
It's just life. It's like everybody's life, you know. I'm envious of those that don't feel like they're a candle burning at both ends, but you know, take it and celebrate it and be safe.
I mean, you're getting close to 10 years in, and there's burnout that can happen.
Yeah,
there is fatigue, there's exhaustion, there's all sorts of other things as well.
Yeah.
You know, we talk a lot about like the fun side of stuff. We talk a lot about the ingredient side of stuff. You know, but I mean, you're literally wearing a reminder permanently on there. Is there balance?
Yeah, I think that I really hate to say, I like genuinely hate to say this, but I think that a lot of people can understand where I'm coming from and not take it the wrong way. COVID was insanely beneficial for that, for me, like of allowing me to find balance. And now that we're, hate to say on the other side of it, but in the sense of like things are back open and people are out, so we're on the other side of it.
We've accepted it.
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier to make appropriate decisions to stay balanced. You know, in the sense that in 2019 we did a fest all over the world every weekend. I was gone all the time, and so you're gone for the weekend. You're at these fests. You come home. You have a week of work. Sometimes only 3 or 4 days of work. So you got to cram it all in, and then you're off flying to do another one. And I think part of it's FOMO, and part of it's that you're proud to be alongside these other brewers and be seen this way. And then it's like I took a step back and I was like, where is the benefit for Dancing Gnome in this? Like, there's people 2 miles away from us that have no idea who we are, and they actually could come consume our product. So I think that that year and a half or 2 years of not being able to go anywhere, like, helped me refocus on what I wanted to do with the brand and how I wanted to operate. So now it's like, I'm totally fine saying no to festivals and picking the right ones that make sense for us. And, so and I think the other thing too is I realized that I'm going to leave at the same time every day, no matter how early I come in. So why should I come in at 5 a.m.?
Yeah.
Because I'm not gonna leave at 1 or 2 if I come in at 5. I'm still gonna leave at 4 or 5.
Right.
So just come in later. Like, stuff's still gonna get done. I have a great team. My team's wonderful. So,
what's the right kind of festival for you now then in 2022 and beyond?
I think that anything that actually can benefit the business long term from a revenue perspective, which, it's a business. Unfortunately, we have to think that way. So it makes way more sense. I mean, for 3 years, we there was one local fest we'd say yes to because it was an awesome fest, and they let me port the fest before we were even open.
Okay.
To get Dancing Gnome's name out, and I always really appreciated them for that. So we always did that fest. That was the only local fest we would do. We said no to all local fests. And that's so dumb. Like, why? Like, in retrospect, it's like that's like the worst decision I could have ever made.
Right.
So now it's like really focusing on local in Western Pennsylvania, focusing on stuff that me or the crew, the brand is happy about. So we did a bunch of lager focus fests this past fall, and then picking a handful that are put on by true friends in the industry, and those are the ones we'll travel to and make sure to prioritize because they've become really close friends.
Is there a fest coming up that you are particularly jazzed about?
Wavy Days in Portland, Maine.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, it's Mass Landing's putting it on.
Okay, I know them.
Yep, yeah. Love those guys, and I love Portland so much. And so, any excuse to get up into Maine, I will take.
Okay. Well, be on the lookout for that.
Yeah.
On the show, I've been asking people as the final question are you familiar with the show The Good Place?
I'm familiar with it, but I don't watch it.
Okay.
Yes.
In the final season of The Good Place, there's a concept introduced of a green door. And you can walk through a green door and be anywhere at any place in time with anybody that you want to be with.
Oh, man.
And so, if such a door was here on our plane of existence, and we finish this conversation and you could walk through it and be in any brewery or any pub anywhere in the world, where would you want to go? Who would you want to be with? And what would you like to be drinking?
Oh, man. This one's really hard because there's a lot of really good places. But I'm gonna. Part of it's lame because it's right here in Pittsburgh, but Piper.
You don't need a green door. You need the bus.
Yeah. Exactly. But Piper's Pub. It never. It has yet to reopen after COVID.
Okay.
And it was a Scottish pub that was just the best. And
how so?
Comfortable, familiar, the same faces all the time. You knew the bartenders, you knew the cooks, you knew the staff. They were open as early as they could, 7 days a week, all holidays.
How early is early?
On the weekends, it was whenever the first soccer game started, which was usually like 6:30 or 7 a.m.
Yeah.
And then I think you can start serving alcohol at 7 a.m. except on Sundays it's 9. And then they'd be open till 2, but it was never a rowdy kind of bar except like when World Cup was on or like soccer was on. And great people, great beers. They had, English beers, German beers. They had local beers as well. Turned them well, took care of the taps, cared about people. Food was great. It was just a great spot. It was just like a really good beer spot. That it was always the place like we took out of town people if they came in. You could just always count on Piper's being great. And yeah, haven't been there since early 2020. So I miss it.
Will they open, or is it?
It's tough to say. I mean, they have a second business that's beside it called Pub Chip Shop, which is like kind of the same food concept, just more like exactly that, like sandwiches and chips. Where where Piper's had a much larger menu that had like full Scottish dinners and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that's open, and that never really closed. I don't know. He's an interesting guy. He's the owners. He hasn't said he's not reopening it.
Okay.
He just hasn't opened it. And people will ask, and he's like, eventually.
All right.
So I'm holding out.
All right.
But
well, we'll get you on the green bus when it does.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks for opening up early. Thanks for sitting down. Thanks for the
absolutely.
Kolsch. Thanks for the fun conversation and for being on the show.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Okay, a quick reminder that the Craft Brewery Cookbook is now on sale where books are sold. Get a copy today. And All About Beer is back online. Go to allaboutbeer.com to catch up with great content. If you want to keep in touch with me, if you have questions, comments, guest suggestions, you can email me. It's John Hall, that's JOHNHOLL at beeredge.com, or you can get with me on Twitter at John_Hall. Check out beeredge.com for our This Week in Rauk Beer and Defend Pilsner merch, and follow along on social media at The Beer Edge. Of course, This Week in Rauk Beer is also online. The Facebook group is easy to search, and on Twitter and Instagram, it's at TW Rauk Beer. And we're able to bring you this show each week thanks to the companies that want to support independent journalism in the beer space. If you'd like to learn more about our surprisingly affordable rates, please reach out to sponsor at beeredge.com. And speaking of that, this episode is sponsored by Stomp Stickers. Stomp is a proud member of the Brewers Association that produces a wide variety of printed brewery products, such as beer labels, keg collars, coasters, beer boxes, and much more. Stomp's website features an easy-to-use design tool, low quantity orders, fast turnaround times, and free domestic shipping. Visit stompstickers.com and use code BeerEdge15 for 15% off of your first order. And as promised, I'm back with Wayne Wombles. He's the brewmaster of Cigar City Brewing, and the brewery is a sponsor of this episode, and of course, we're thankful for that. Wayne, we're talking about Cosmic Crown. This is the Belgian-style strong golden ale from the brewery, and we learned a little bit about it at the top of the show, but more philosophically, as a brewer and a drinker, what do you find yourself drawn to with this beer?
Well, I think it's one of our more exciting, newer offerings that we put into the market recently, because I really enjoy the complex esters and phenols that this yeast strain produces. But what I really like is I like the Galaxy hops interaction with that ester and phenol profile that this Belgian yeast produces. And then having that malt sweetness there be balanced by the pepperiness of the yeast strain, and how deceptively easy it drinks for a 9% beer. And, it still has some tropical notes that you can expect from a lot of Cigar City Brewing beers. But I really love that Galaxy with the Belgian yeast strain. I think it works really well.
I dig it. Well, thanks, Wayne. I appreciate you sharing your thoughts, and I'm now going to encourage everybody to go visit cigarcitybrewing.com, where they can learn more about Cosmic Crown, as well as all of the brewery's other beers.
Excellent. Thanks, John.
Quick reminder, go check out the Beer Edge podcast with Andy Crouch. Steal This Beer has new episodes every Monday, and the BYO Nano podcast comes out on the 15th of every month. And go visit allaboutbeer.com. As for this show, Nate Schweber does the music, Jeff Quinn designed our logo, and I'm John Hall. New episodes release every Wednesday, and that's when I'm going to be back again to drink beer and to think beer.